Hello and welcome. My name is Scott Good and I want to talk to you today about measurement and evaluation here at SenseCorp. SenseCorp is a management consulting firm based out of St. Louis. We're actually here in the Austin office today. We're going to be walking through one of our knowledge transfer programs. So the agenda is going to be to give you the program's background and then to talk about the evaluation design, how we figured out exactly what we wanted to know about the program, what the results were, and then some discussion and recommendations for moving forward. So the program background is that, again, we're here at SenseCorp, a management consulting firm that does a lot of business intelligence, a lot of data warehousing. So a lot of our roles are very different than a traditional management consulting firm. So when you think about roles like project manager, what that means here, it doesn't quite mean the same thing in other firms. And so we have a very specific role that we think of when we think of a project manager. There are a lot of knowledge sharing programs here at SenseCorp that have to do with various industries, various regions, various roles like the project manager. And these take place pretty frequently, every couple of weeks or so, and they're normally on Fridays at lunch, and we use systems that are already in place. So they're very inexpensive for us to do these. The program that I decided to work with was the Project Management Community Monthly Calls. So project managers, again, are a very different role here. And over time, some of the people in that group have decided that there needs to be a toolkit for that role so that they can be successful in their day-to-day function, as well as having an informal forum where they can discuss topics that are coming up, that they're not sure about, that they want some feedback on, or to kind of let other people in the organization understand more about the role. So the reason we needed to evaluate this, there are a number of reasons. One is that none of these knowledge transfer programs have really been measured yet. So we really wanted to get to kind of the bottom of these and get a baseline for whether these programs are effective in general, so that then we can go and dig deeper into some of these programs and decide what are the learning outcomes and what do those mean when it comes time to apply the learning that they've done to their day-to-day job. So we want to understand a couple of things. We want to understand, are people engaged with these programs? We want to understand if they're learning from these programs, but you have to be engaged in order to learn. And we want to understand if they're applying this knowledge so that we can understand some kind of return on investment. So the way that we design the evaluation, we developed survey questions that were done sort of in a manner of Kirkpatrick's 4-level model. So this model has been around for a very long time. It's used widely by some groups and not so widely by others. It has even received a lot of criticism in the past 10, 15 years or so, where people are saying it's really not that effective. But the funny thing is that a lot of people still end up basing their models on top of it. So again, for this baseline that we're doing, this foundation of measurement and evaluation, this is very appropriate because what we need to understand is, are people engaged? Are people learning? Are people applying that knowledge? And are we getting some kind of return on our investment? So the measure for success, again, foundational, is just, are people learning and are people applying that to their job? So we sought to see that. The instrument for data collection was just a Google survey. We developed a form that people were able to fill out. We sent it out to people that had attended the calls at some point in time, and we were able to get some feedback there. Google actually produces a lot of great visuals, and it gives you a great spreadsheet of all the responses so that you can really sit down and you can dig into it and see what were the responses, what were some of the trends, and then also what were some of the anomalies and things that we can work on. So the results were, we had about 22 people respond. The majority of that group had listened to 2 to 3 calls. The vast majority had listened to more than 1 call. There have been 5 calls in total. 50% usually tune in remotely. Since SenseCorp is kind of spread around the country, 3 cities in Texas, and then in St. Louis as our base cities. If you're not in Austin, it's very hard to tune into these live. You have to do that remotely. Over half of that audience were not project managers, which was really interesting. Obviously, there are a lot more people in the organization that are not project managers than are project managers, but it was interesting to see how many people were tuning in. So we analyzed some of this data and we saw that 90.9, almost 91% reported that they had learned something new, which we just asked point blank. We said, did you learn something new from these calls? Since no real learning objectives were created for each individual call, we just asked in general, did you learn? And then we asked, what did you learn? And gave them kind of an open forum to say that. 11 people gave examples out of the 20 that said that they had learned. And so they told us some very specific things that they had walked away with. 63.6 reported that they had utilized their knowledge on the job, and 6 gave examples. So that's actually a lot of people saying, okay, this has changed the way that I work. I am a more effective project manager. Because of this, I have improved, which is really kind of the goal at the end of the day, because that is what provides your return on investment. So I really want to talk about some of the future of measurement and evaluation and futures of this program specifically. So we want to specify learning objectives for each call. That is going to be very key to making sure that we can measure and evaluate each call and understand what are we trying to teach people and what do we want them to be able to do on the job. And we want those to tie back to some kind of inefficiency or something that hasn't been decided yet, something that will improve the way that project managers work or the way that other people work with project managers. We want to produce measurement instruments to evaluate those things. There are a number of different models that I'm happy to look into, but we would want to kind of discuss what we want people to learn first before we develop that model. The performance appraisal is going to be key in that. So we already have a performance appraisal here at SimsCorp, but having something more specific for project managers that we can help track how these forums are helping people. And then we want to measure the ROI. We can do this to an extent currently, but until we are looking at specific measures of success, it's going to be very difficult for us to do. So the recommendations are to make the calls more interactive. The things that our respondents said that they had learned and said that they were doing now were things that came from topics in the more interactive calls, the ones where they were able to discuss and ask questions and really dig into the topics. Whenever that was possible, they learned more and they were able to apply more. We want to continue to entice employees to attend live. This program in Austin is great because we've got a big boardroom, we've got a nice office, we cater in lunch, and we have a lot of people show up and they get to sit in the room and have those discussions, and those were the people who tended to learn more and apply more of their knowledge. They also, just in general, people said that they would prefer to tune in live, which is great. Learning outcomes for non-project managers. We talk a lot about project managers and what they need to be doing, and a lot of people are trying to work into that role, but in general, we want something that also applies to the rest of the audience. Since the vast majority of people tuning into the calls are not project managers, we want to make sure that there's something that they get to walk away with too, and not just, oh, if you one day become a project manager, here's what you would need to know, but also because you work with a project manager every day, here are some things that might be useful. Then we want to evaluate programs more often. All of our programs, this needs to become part of the culture here. It has been said that evaluation is a state of mind, and so we really want to get our organization into that state of mind, measuring our own learning programs for efficiency, because this really does rest on all of our shoulders. We cannot lean specifically on our training and learning people. We all have to assist with this. So, and the last thing that I would recommend is to continue to host these knowledge sharing programs. Again, this rests on all of our shoulders. This is something that we all need to be participating in order to continue to improve our organization. So that's the entire presentation. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to sit down and talk through any of this in more detail, and then to also look at what we can do in the future to continue to improve these programs. Thank you.